Does your person have brown hair?
No.
It's a concept we're familiar with from a young age.
Does your person have glasses?
Certain characteristics about a person's appearance can make them stand out from others.
Is your person's gender a boy?
It's those memorable markers that make this possible.
And is there a part actually in his hair?
Detective Tanya Newberry has been the Boise Police Department sketch artist for 5 years.
That was the very first one I did.
She's tasked with drawing lifelike portraits of people she's never seen.
I can only draw what the victim or witness tells me to draw.
But it's often her sketches that lead to an arrest.
I had one that was a triple shooting, double homicide. That suspect was caught. This was a sexual assault of an elderly lady in Ontario, Oregon.
The process begins with a series of questions.
And then what is their most outstanding feature?
Detective Newberry will walk the victim or witness through the process by first having them tell the story from the very beginning, asking, did they have an accent? Did you see their hands? And were they wearing any jewelry? All in an effort to jog memories.
And that's what you're hoping to do, whether it be a mannerism or some kind of scar or mark or something that can help identify that person.
Luckily for Detective Newberry, she doesn't need to work only with verbal directions from a distraught witness. Instead, an entire book of images highlighting hundreds of mugshots dialed in on specific facial features.
And then we go through this whole list of eyes and eyebrows and noses, and that way I have something to go off.
So we put her to the test.
What's an age range for him?
She asked me all the questions she would usually ask a witness, and I described our friendly, non-criminal evening manager, Mike Sharp.
Did you see his eyes? Do you know what color eyes he has?
Light eyes, but he wears glasses.
Now, do you feel like he has more or less forehead?
And for the record, it's a lot harder than it seems.
See, I could see how this could be so difficult if you've only seen the person one time, because this is someone I see every day, and I don't know what his eyes would be.
After jotting down notes on every feature, she allows the victim to return home, sending them rough drafts and asking for feedback.
You can keep working with until they go, that looks like the guy.
And check it out. It does look like our guy.
It's pretty good, right?
It does, and then that's the point. You see him every day at work.
And it was so hard. And you're even looking at photos, but it's 50 different sets of ears and eyebrows and noses, and it's just hard to differentiate. And especially if someone has only seen the person one time and it was a stranger, it's incredible how similar some of these images are able to look compared to the mugshots.
So it's even more of a challenge for them, obviously, when someone just is passing somebody on the street. But they're trained for that, so they know what questions to ask. And
yeah, and it works because they've made several arrests, and a lot of them are due in part because of her sketches. So it's pretty incredible.
It is. All right, thanks, Karen.
Well, I jumped on the chance to be part of it.
This is inmate Dustin Gardner. And with a name like that, you could say he found his calling, farming the fields at IDOC's Pleasant Valley Farm.
We got another batch down here that we're going to plant later on.
The program allows a handful of hand-picked inmates to step outside prison walls, spending daylight hours caring for a 5-acre vegetable farm to stock the shelves at the Idaho Food Bank with fresh produce.
My mom was a single parent, and growing up, we had to use food banks a lot just to get by. While my mom worked 3 jobs. So I've seen the effects of a program like this and how much it can really help.
And it's helping in a major way.
We have a really good system.
Food resource developer with the Idaho Food Bank, Don Brown, says the program runs almost entirely off donations, from free advice from local farmers to donated seeds and borrowed farm equipment, all lending itself to a hearty harvest by the end of the season.
We're about 1.75 million pounds. So that comes up to about 300,000 pounds of produce a year.
From this farm?
Just from this farm. That's basically, 5 miles from the food bank.
It seemed like it was never ending. These weeds go and go and go. But at the end of the season, to see the truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of food that get to go out to the community, it warmed my heart.
The inmates spend about 8 hours a day working out in this field, and they are learning a lot more than what it takes to grow fresh produce.
It gives us all kinds of skills, not just skills of learning how to work, skills of knowing how to get along, skills of knowing who to pick to, social skills.
What we hope they gain from this is an appreciation of number one, hard work, but also the satisfaction of something that you accomplished, something you did yourself by your own determination.
Like any farmers, they've improved techniques through the years through trial and error.
You get so focused on what you're doing that time flies.
seeing major success with melons, cucumbers, green beans, and beets. But one of their favorite crops to set aside space for is winter squash, feeding families almost year-round.
Because winter squash, when we harvest it in October, it'll last in our warehouse until spring, summer.
Changing lives for Treasure Valley families in need while rehabilitating those who need help the most.
Sometimes in life, you need a second chance to go out there and do things the right way a second time. And that's kind of what this program has given me, is a second chance. And I get to be part of something.
Isn't that pretty cool?
Oh,
I do got to give them credit, though. I shot the story a couple of weeks ago. Things have grown quite a bit since then. They did send me a couple updates. Check out what it looks like now. And they actually are trying to expand. They've got another 5-acre plot of land right next to where they're working right now, and they could do a lot more with 5 more acres soon.
And I know you enjoy this because you
I do,
love
yeah.
your garden. So do they get to enjoy, can I say, the fruits of their labor, or I guess the veggies of their labor?
Yeah, well, fruits too. They've got
fruits,
melons
okay.
and stuff out there too. And so at the end of the summer, there are a couple of things, especially the corn, that they don't travel so well or last long term in a warehouse. So they do get to have a big feast at the end of the season, enjoy the fruits of their labor, and share those with some other inmates as well.
Great story.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. 6 on your sides, Karen Lehr went to Salt Lake City to see how their physicians are using science to back their movement. She joins us live in studio in tonight's Finding Home.
Well, Don, not only are doctors with Intermountain Healthcare sending patients home with much fewer pain pills than in the past, but they're also taking major strides toward educating every person that walks through their doors about the potential addictive side effects of many medications.
78 to 80% of current heroin users started with prescription pain medication.
That's motivation enough for Dr. Jay Bishop and the rest of Utah's Intermountain Healthcare system to step up and take action in efforts to prevent playing a part in increased opioid addiction among their patients.
But what we found is we can prescribe at least 50% less than we are currently prescribing.
In 2017, Intermountain started a database compiling information from 170,000 patients post-surgery.
Hysterectomy, eye surgery, kidney stones, broken arms, knee replacements.
Their main areas of focus: was your pain adequately controlled, and did you take home more prescription painkillers than you needed? The results are eye-opening for physicians.
To say, look, you've been giving 30 Percocet tablets to patients who've had kidney stones. They're going to take on average 4.
Wow.
And in urology, it turns out the sweet spot is right around 10 tablets, no matter what we do to you, about 10. For other surgeries, a little more invasive, it's about 12 to 15. But it's not these high numbers, 60, 30, that we used to prescribe. It's far less than that.
They even take into account whether or not the patient has a higher tolerance for opioids, depending on medications for other conditions.
The physicians can go into the electronic medical record and say, okay, I just did a knee replacement on somebody who's taking narcotics coming into surgery. What's the average number that they consume?
Intermountain's physicians then typically send home 2 prescriptions, one to manage pain in the immediate days following surgery, and a second dated prescription that can't be filled until a week later.
So that just in case they need it, they have it.
Since the start of the shared database, a major cutback on the number of unneeded pills sent home.
And having done that across the system, we've decreased opioid prescriptions by 24%.
Tallying up to the equivalent of 3.8 million pills in just 1 year.
It's a lot of pills that weren't going to be used for good reasons.
They've also implemented a program called Speak Out, Opt Out, Throw Out, educating patients they don't need to take opioids if they don't want to.
Patients will now say, do I really need to take these? I'm going to take the prescription. I'm not going to fill it unless I need it.
The healthcare system has also helped fund billboards around town, along with increasing signage within the hospital itself, educating patients about the addictive aspects of many medications.
Now, here in Utah, the key to reducing opioid prescriptions isn't just relying on the physicians, it's also educating the patients themselves, using signs like this to get the conversation started.
And we put wraps all over in the hospital, like in the surgery waiting area where your family's waiting for you to come out of surgery. We have literature in there. We have wraps that show the dangers of opioids. So by the time you come out of surgery and are ready for discharge, we've hit you and your family to say, hey, look, these can be very dangerous substances.
So it's pretty remarkable how much progress they've made in just a year. They're also sending home all of these surgery patients home with informational cards about the importance of getting rid of those extra pills after they're done with their healing process. So as part of Speak Out, Opt Out, Throw Out, they've also increased the number of drug take-back bins at each of their hospitals and in their pharmacies.
It is so refreshing to hear a physician talk about the pill count.
Yeah, and they're even sending some patients home just by using Tylenol and Motrin at the hospital. So people are learning, especially since they're getting this conversation started. They know that there are some ways to treat this pain that are not through opioids. And again, it's worth mentioning this has nothing to do with chronic pain patients. This is just for acute pain for people after surgeries or after some type of medical procedures where that pain is only going to last for a short period of time, because Dr. Bishop says the two are incredibly different.